The morning air on Station Kepler 7 carried the familiar scent of recycled atmosphere and cleaning solutions. Sarah Chun walked down the polished corridors of the Galactic Defense Academy, her standard tissue boots making soft sounds against the metal flooring. Around her, cadets from dozens of species moved with purpose toward their training assignments. Sarah had been at the academy for 3 months now, one of only 12 humans accepted into the prestigious program. The Galactic Defense Force had only recently begun accepting human applicants, and everyone seemed curious about what these newcomers from the small blue planet could offer. Most of the curiosity was polite. Some of it was less so. "Look, it's the soft skin," rumbled Kralvex, a massive predator cadet whose species stood nearly 8 feet tall. His mottled gray hide was covered in natural armor plating, and his forearms ended in claws that could tear through steel. The predators were among the most feared warriors in the galaxy, and they knew it. Sarah kept walking, pretending she hadn't heard the comment. She had learned early in her time here that responding to every slight would only make things worse. The predators seemed to take particular pleasure in reminding everyone that humans were small, weak, and had no natural weapons. "I heard they gave her species special accommodations," added Vexmore, another predator cadet. "Extra padding in their training gear because their bones break so easily." This wasn't entirely false. Humans did require different equipment than many species. While the predators had natural armor and the rock-like granite clan had nearly indestructible bodies, humans were indeed more fragile in direct comparison. But Sarah had learned that fragility didn't always mean weakness. She reached the training center and checked the assignment board. Combat Exercise 7 Delta, Non-Lethal Engagement Protocols. Equipment distribution at Station 3. Sarah made her way to the equipment station, where Instructor Zal Prime was handing out training weapons. The insectoid being's compound eyes glittered as cadets approached. Zal Prime had been a legendary warrior before becoming an instructor, and every cadet respected him. Chun. Sarah, human designation, Sarah reported. Zal Prime's mandibles clicked as he consulted his tablet. Yes, the human. Your people are still being evaluated for combat roles, correct? Yes, sir. Today's exercise is territorial control. Each cadet will be given a weapon and must defend their assigned zone while attempting to claim others. Standard Academy rules: no permanent damage, no strikes to vital organs, unconsciousness means elimination. Sarah nodded. She had participated in several similar exercises, usually finishing in the middle of the pack. Not impressive, but respectable for someone from a species still considered under review. By Academy standards. Zal-Prime reached into the equipment bin and pulled out a device Sarah didn't recognize. It looked like a simple rod, about 18 inches long, with a grip handle and a button. No blade, no obvious energy projector, no visible threat capability. Your weapon today is a neural disruption baton, Zal Prime explained. Commonly called a stun stick by most species. Point it at a target, press the button, and it sends a focused neural pulse that temporarily disrupts motor function. Range is approximately 3 meters, effect lasts 30 seconds. Non-lethal, as requested by your species representatives? Sarah took the device and felt its weight. It was lighter than she had expected, almost toy-like compared to the energy weapons and combat blades being distributed to other cadets behind her. She heard the familiar rumble of predator laughter. "They gave the human a child's toy," Kralvex announced loudly. "A pointing stick for the fragile species. Maybe she can use it to poke enemies very gently," added Vexmore. Causing more laughter from the predator group. Sarah clipped the baton to her belt and walked toward the training arena without responding. The space was massive, filled with barriers, elevated platforms, and obstacles designed to simulate various combat environments. 12 cadets total would participate in this exercise, including the group of predator cadets who had been making comments. Positions, called Instructor Zal Prime from the observation deck. Exercise begins in 30 seconds. Remember, this is about tactical thinking, not just fighting. Control territory, deny access to opponents, use your environment. Sarah found herself assigned to Position 7, a small elevated platform surrounded by several large barriers. It was defensible but isolated, exactly the sort of position usually given to cadets, who weren't expected to be major factors in the exercise. She looked around at her fellow participants. 12 cadets total, including 6 predators, 3 Granite Clan members, 2 crystalline shard beings, and herself. In terms of raw physical capability, she was easily the weakest person in the arena. 10 seconds. Called ZL-Prime. Sarah held the neural baton and tried to think tactically. 3-meter range. 30-second effect, non-lethal. Her opponents had energy weapons, plasma blades, and electromagnetic pulse generators. In a straight fight, she would lose badly, but Sarah hadn't survived 3 months at the academy by fighting fair. Begin. The arena immediately erupted into activity. The Granite Clan members, slow but nearly indestructible, began methodically advancing toward key positions. The shard beings used their natural agility to leap between platforms. And the predators did what predators always did. They attacked directly and aggressively. Sarah crouched behind her barrier and watched the patterns develop. Most cadets were focused on claiming the high-value central positions, which meant the outer areas were being ignored. More importantly, everyone was moving predictably. Using the same tactics they had been taught in previous exercises, Kraldex was advancing toward the central platform, his massive form easily deflecting energy blasts from 2 shard beings. His natural armor made him nearly immune to the light weapons being used in training, and his 4 arms gave him obvious advantages in multi-directional combat. Sarah made her decision. Instead of defending her assigned position, she dropped down from her platform and moved along the arena floor, staying low and using the larger barriers for cover. Her small size, usually a disadvantage, allowed her to move through spaces that larger species couldn't access. She reached the base of Kraldex's position just as he successfully claimed the central platform. The massive predator was focused on threats from above, and hadn't noticed her approach. Sarah pointed the neural baton upward and pressed the button. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Kraldex's 4 arms suddenly went limp, his legs buckled, and all 8 feet of armored predator crashed to the platform floor with a thunderous bang that echoed through the arena. Cadet Kraldex eliminated, announced Zal Prime, his voice carrying clear surprise. The arena went quiet for a moment as everyone processed what had happened. Then the fighting resumed with renewed intensity. Sarah was already moving. She had observed something important during previous exercises. Most cadets, especially the larger and stronger ones, relied heavily on their natural advantages. They expected smaller opponents to keep their distance and fight defensively. They didn't expect those opponents to close distance and attack from unexpected angles. Sarah used this. Vexmore was engaged in a firefight with one of the Granite Clan members, his energy weapon sending bright pulses across the arena. He was positioned behind a barrier, focused entirely on his opponent in front of him. Sarah approached from behind, moving carefully to stay in his blind spot. When she was close enough, she simply pointed the baton at the back of his armored head and pressed the button. Vexmore dropped like a stone. Cadet Vexmore eliminated. Now the arena was paying attention to her. Sarah could see heads turning, opponents beginning to track her movement. She would have to be more careful, but she had also learned something else important. The neural baton was more effective than anyone had expected. The instructors had described it as a simple stunning device, but it was dropping even heavily armored opponents instantly. Either human weapons technology was more advanced than people realized, or the other species had less resistance to neural disruption than the Academy databases indicated. Sarah continued moving, using her speed and size to stay ahead of opponents who were now actively hunting her. She took down 2 shard beings by climbing to positions they didn't expect her to reach, then stunning them as they passed below. She eliminated a Granite Clan member by waiting patiently for him to expose his head while climbing, then hitting him with the baton's pulse at maximum range. The arena was now down to 6 cadets. Including Sarah, the remaining predators had adapted to her tactics and were working together. using their superior size and reach to control the high positions. While watching for her approach, Sarah realized she needed a new strategy. She noticed that the arena's environmental systems included several maintenance panels near floor level. During the Academy orientation, they had been warned that these panels were off-limits during exercises. But Sarah had never heard an explanation of what they actually controlled. She made her way to the nearest panel and found what she was looking for: environmental controls for the arena's artificial gravity system. Most species on the station were accustomed to standard gravity. But Sarah knew that humans had evolved on a planet with slightly higher gravitational pull than galactic standard. Sarah quickly adjusted the gravity in O. The conference room was larger than Sarah had expected, with a curved table that could accommodate the various anatomical needs of different species. High-ranking Academy officials sat around it, their faces showing expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. Sarah took the single chair at the center. Feeling uncomfortably like she was on trial, Admiral Thescora, the Academy's commanding officer, was a dignified member of the ethereal collective. Her translucent blue skin seemed to glow softly in the room's lighting, and her large eyes held an intelligence that had earned her respect across the galaxy. She gestured with one graceful hand for Sarah to be seated. "Cadet Chun, thank you for joining us," the Admiral began, her voice carrying the musical tones typical of her species. "I trust you understand why this meeting was requested." "I believe so, ma'am. My performance in yesterday's exercise was unusual." "That is one way to describe it," said General Caxtheron, a scarred veteran from the Predator hierarchy. His forearms were crossed, and Sarah could see the barely contained irritation in his posture. "In my 40 years of military service, I have never seen anything like what occurred yesterday." Sarah remained silent, unsure whether she was being complimented or criticized. Dr. Valanth, the Academy's chief medical officer, consulted her tablet with her three-fingered hands. Her species, the healer caste, were known for their analytical minds and precise attention to detail. The medical data from the exercise is quite fascinating. All 11 eliminated cadets recovered completely within normal parameters. But the speed and effectiveness of the neural disruption was beyond our projections. "Indeed," added Commander Zixmal, the head of tactical instruction. His crystalline form refracted the room's light into beautiful patterns as he moved. "Our computer simulations had predicted Cadet Chun would be eliminated within the first 5 minutes of the exercise. Instead, she achieved total victory against statistically superior opponents." Admiral Thescora leaned forward slightly. "Cadet Chun, we would like to understand exactly how you approached yesterday's exercise. Please walk us through your tactical thinking." Sarah took a breath and organized her thoughts. "Ma'am, I realized early that I couldn't win through direct confrontation. My equipment and physical capabilities were inferior to every other participant. So I focused on advantages I did have." "Which were?" prompted General Caxtheron. "Size, mobility, and unconventional thinking. Most of the other cadets fought the way they had been trained, using their natural advantages in predictable patterns. I used their expectations against them." Dr. Valanth made notes on her tablet. "The gravity adjustment was particularly innovative. We had to review the Academy regulations to determine whether it was technically legal." "And was it?" Sarah asked. "Technically, yes," Commander Zixmal admitted with what might have been grudging admiration. "The environmental controls are part of the arena, and any cadet may use available resources. However, in 3 centuries of Academy operation, no one has ever thought to modify gravity during a combat exercise." Admiral Thescora studied Sarah carefully. "The question before us, Cadet Chun, is what your performance means for human integration into galactic defense forces. Your species has been classified as under evaluation pending demonstration of suitable capabilities. Yesterday certainly qualified as a demonstration. However," General Caxtheron interjected, his voice carrying a warning tone, "it also raised questions. Your tactics were effective, but they were also concerning." Sarah felt her heart rate increase. "In what way, sir?" You systematically eliminated 11 highly trained warriors using methods they had never encountered before. You adapted your strategy in real time, exploited weaknesses they didn't know they had, and used their own strengths against them. These are not the actions of a typical military cadet. Dr. Valenth looked up from her notes. What General Caxtheron is suggesting is that your behavior pattern matches profiles we have developed for specialized operatives. The room fell quiet. Sarah understood the implication immediately. They weren't questioning her abilities as a soldier, they were wondering if humans might be natural spies and assassins. With respect, "Sir," Sarah said carefully, "I was following all Academy rules and protocols. I used the equipment provided and completed the assigned objective. Everything I did was legal and ethical." "That's precisely the point," Admiral Thescora said softly. "You achieved results that violated every expectation, but you did so without breaking a single rule. That suggests a level of tactical creativity that could be either very valuable or very dangerous, depending on which side you're on." Commander Zixmal's crystalline form shifted colors as he spoke. "We have reviewed recordings of human military history from your species archives. The patterns are illuminating. Humans have a documented tendency to excel at asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and unconventional strategy. They adapt quickly to new situations, and often discover solutions that other species. Your species fought multiple global conflicts, using tactics that would have been considered impossible by galactic standards," added Dr. Valenth. "Camouflage, deception, psychological warfare, terrain exploitation, these are not typical of civilized military doctrine." Sarah felt a surge of defensive pride. "They were also necessary for our survival. Humans had to be creative because we were often outgunned and outnumbered. We learned to use intelligence because we couldn't always use force." "Exactly," said General Caxtheron. "And that raises questions about how humans might behave when integrated into galactic military structures. Will you follow established doctrine, or will you continue to innovate?" Admiral Thescora held up a hand to quiet the discussion. "Let me be more direct, Cadet Chun. Your performance yesterday has created a political situation. Several member species have expressed concern about human military capabilities. They are worried that humans might be too dangerous to trust with advanced weapons and technology." "But I only used a neural baton," Sarah protested. "It's classified as non-lethal training equipment." "Yes, but you used it to defeat opponents equipped with much more powerful weapons. This suggests that the limitation was not your equipment, but your environment. What might you accomplish with full military hardware?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah realized that her success had created exactly the kind of problem she had hoped to avoid. Instead of proving that humans were capable allies, she had demonstrated that they might be unpredictable ones. Dr. Valenth consulted her tablet again. "We have received formal inquiries from the Predator High Command, the Granite Clan Council, and the Shard Collective. They want detailed analyses of human combat psychology and tactical doctrine. Some have suggested that human military integration should be postponed pending further study." "On the other hand," Commander Zixmal added, his crystal shifting to a brighter hue, "the Strategic Planning Division is very interested in human capabilities. They believe asymmetric warfare specialists could be valuable assets in conflicts against unknown enemies." General Caxtheron leaned forward, all four arms resting on the table. "The question is whether we can trust humans to use these capabilities responsibly. Your species has a history of internal conflicts and territorial disputes. How do we know you won't turn these skills against your allies?" Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. "General, with respect, every species in this galaxy has a history of conflicts. Humans aren't unique in that regard. What we are is adaptable. We learn from our mistakes and work to improve. That's exactly why we're here, to prove we can be reliable allies." "But adaptation can also mean changing sides when circumstances change," the general replied. "A species that excels at deception and unconventional tactics might also excel at betrayal. Admiral Thescora intervened again. General, that's enough. We're here to evaluate capabilities, not to make accusations. She turned back to Sarah. Cadet Chun, what would you say to critics who argue that human tactical methods are incompatible with galactic military standards? Sarah thought carefully before responding. Ma'am, I would say that diversity of tactics makes military forces stronger, not weaker. Every species brings different advantages to galactic defense. Predators bring strength and aggression. Granite Clan brings endurance and resilience. Ethereals bring strategic thinking. Humans bring adaptability and problem-solving. We don't replace anyone's capabilities, we add to them. Dr. Valanth looked interested. Elaborate on that, please. Yesterday's exercise was designed to test individual combat capability, so I acted alone. But in real military operations, humans work as part of teams. We're force multipliers, not lone wolves. A human working with predator strength or granite endurance or ethereal intelligence is more effective than any of us working alone. Commander Zixmal's colors shifted again. Interesting perspective. But what about the concern that human methods are unpredictable? Unpredictable to enemies is an advantage, Sarah replied. Unpredictable to allies is a communication problem. The solution isn't to eliminate unpredictability, it's to improve communication and coordination. The room fell silent as the officials considered her words. Sarah could see them weighing the benefits and risks of human integration, trying to. 3 weeks after the conference room meeting, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Academy's main training complex, watching as maintenance crews prepared the largest exercise arena for what the Academy was calling Evaluation Protocol Omega. Below, an environment that resembled a war-torn city sprawled across several square kilometers, complete with damaged buildings, blocked streets, and hidden obstacles. Nervous? Asked Lieutenant Torres, the only other human at the Academy who had been cleared for the Special Evaluation Program. Maria Torres was a former Special Forces officer with calm eyes and steady hands. She had arrived 2 weeks ago specifically for these exercises. Excited, Sarah replied honestly. Today we find out whether humans can work with aliens, not just against them. The exercises of the past 3 weeks had been increasingly complex. Sarah had been tested in small unit tactics, leadership scenarios, and technological adaptation challenges. Each time she had performed well, but each time the questions about human unpredictability had grown larger. Today would be different. Instead of demonstrating individual capabilities, she would lead a mixed-species team in a complex rescue scenario. The challenge was not just tactical, but political. How do you convince other species to follow human leadership when they're not sure they can trust human methods? Attention all participants, came the announcement from Admiral Thescora over the communication system. Exercise Omega will commence in 10 minutes. Team leaders, please review your final briefings. Sarah checked her equipment one more time. Today she carried standard Academy gear, an energy rifle, tactical scanner, medical kit, and communication equipment. No experimental weapons, no special accommodations. If she was going to succeed, it would be through leadership and teamwork, not surprise tactics. Her team consisted of 5 cadets from different species, each selected for specific capabilities. Kralvex was a young predator warrior, part of the same clan as the cadets she had eliminated in her first exercise. Roxal represented the Granite Clan, his massive form nearly indestructible but slow-moving. Zinkara was a shard being whose crystalline body could interface directly with electronic systems. Vulthes, an ethereal like the Admiral, brought strategic thinking and communication skills. And finally, Hex Prime, an insectoid from the Hive Collective, whose species excelled at coordination and multitasking. The challenge they faced was complex. Somewhere in the simulated city, a group of civilians, actually Academy staff members, were trapped in a damaged building while hostile forces controlled the surrounding area. The team had to reach the civilians, evacuate them safely, and neutralize the threats without causing excessive collateral damage. Sarah had studied the briefing carefully. The scenario was designed to test every aspect of military leadership: tactical planning, resource management, team coordination, and real-time adaptation. It was also designed to put pressure on her specifically, testing whether human unpredictability would help or hurt when leading a diverse team. Teams. Proceed to starting positions. Announced the exercise controller. Sarah gathered her team around a holographic map display. All right, everyone knows the mission parameters. Civilians are trapped in Building 7. Grid reference Delta 4. Hostile forces are concentrated in the surrounding blocks, using energy weapons and standard tactics. Our job is to get in, get them out, and neutralize threats to prevent pursuit. Kralvex, the young predator, shifted restlessly on his feet. Standard approach would be direct assault. My people excel at frontal attacks. And my clan can absorb enemy fire while advancing, added Roxal, his gravelly voice echoing from his stone-like throat. Together we could break through their lines easily. Sarah nodded. That's one option. Zinkara, what do your sensors show about enemy positions? The shard being's crystalline form flickered as she interfaced with the tactical display. Hostile forces are deployed in a standard defensive perimeter. 3 primary positions with overlapping fields of fire, approximately 20 simulated enemies total. However, their positioning suggests they expect a conventional assault. Which means a conventional assault will face maximum resistance, observed Valthes, her ethereal voice carrying the analytical tones of her species. They have prepared for exactly what Kralvex suggests? Hex Prime's compound eyes glittered as he processed multiple data streams simultaneously. Alternative approaches exist. Underground access through maintenance tunnels, aerial insertion via building tops, or systematic elimination of enemy positions through stealth operations. Sarah studied the tactical display, noting details that others might miss. I see another option. What if we don't assault their positions at all? The team looked at her with confusion. Kralvex was the first to speak. The mission requires neutralizing hostile forces. The mission requires preventing pursuit and ensuring civilian safety, Sarah corrected. That doesn't necessarily mean direct combat. She pointed to specific locations on the map. Look at their defensive pattern. They're focused on protecting the central area, probably expecting us to fight our way through to reach the civilians. But what if the civilians weren't in that building anymore when we attacked? Zinkara's form brightened with understanding. You suggest evacuation before engagement. Exactly. Hex Prime, can your hive coordination abilities manage simultaneous operations? Roxal and Kralvex created diversion here. She indicated a position opposite the civilian building, while Zinkara, Valthes and I extract the civilians from this alternate route. The Predator cadet looked skeptical. This seems overly complicated. Why not simply fight our way through? Because fighting our way through gets civilians killed, Sarah replied. Our job is to save lives, not prove how tough we are. Sometimes the best victory is the one where nobody has to fight at all. Valthes nodded slowly. This approach requires precise coordination and trust between team members. Are you confident in our ability to execute? I'm confident in our individual abilities. Whether we can work together effectively, that's what we're here to find out. The team moved into position, each member knowing their role. Sarah had learned from her previous exercises that success required playing to everyone's strengths while compensating for weaknesses. Predators were aggressive but predictable. Granite clan members were tough but slow. Shard beings were technically capable but fragile. Ethereals were intelligent but physically weak. Insectoids were coordinated but inflexible. Humans, as it turned out, were adaptable enough to work with all of them. The exercise began with Kralvex and Roxal launching their diversion attack, the young predator's natural aggression. Normally a liability in complex operations, became an asset when channeled properly. His fierce assault drew enemy attention exactly as planned. Roxal's massive form absorbed enemy fire while advancing steadily. His stone-like, hide-deflecting energy blast that would have stopped other species. Meanwhile, Sarah led the extraction team through the maintenance tunnels that Hex Prime had identified. Zinkara's ability to interface with electronic systems disabled security barriers and unlocked access routes. Valthes's strategic mind anticipated defensive positions and planned optimal movement paths. The plan was working perfectly until they reached the civilian building and discovered a complication that hadn't appeared in the briefing. The trapped civilians included 2 injured Academy staff, members who couldn't move quickly through the escape route they had planned. Extraction timeline just doubled, reported Valthes after scanning the injured personnel. With her medical equipment, these individuals require careful movement to avoid additional injury. Sarah felt familiar pressure. This was exactly the kind of unexpected development that tested human adaptability. She could hear energy weapons firing in the distance as Kralvex and Roxal maintained their diversion, but that wouldn't last forever. Zinkara, can you access the building's internal systems? Lights, elevators, anything that might help? Systems are partially functional. Emergency power only. Hex Prime, how long can our diversion team maintain their position? Current engagement rate suggests 12 minutes before tactical situation becomes untenable. Sarah made rapid calculations. Careful evacuation would take 15 minutes minimum. They needed a new approach. Change of plans. Valthes, take point and begin evacuation with the mobile civilians. Use the route we planned. Zinkara, can you create a temporary power surge to operate the building's medical transport system? Affirmative, but it will draw significant attention to our position. That's the idea. Hex Prime, coordinate with our diversion team. Have them shift their attack pattern to suggest we're actually assaulting from their direction. Make the enemy think the real threat is still coming from the front. As her team executed the revised plan, Sarah realized she was doing exactly what the Academy officials had worried about. She was improvising, adapting in real time, using unpredictable tactics that nobody had planned for. But instead of working alone, she was doing it through a coordinated team effort, the medical transport system activated with a hum that could probably be heard throughout the building. Enemy forces immediately began repositioning to counter what they assumed was a new threat from an unexpected direction. But instead of finding assault forces, they found empty corridors and, oh,